So it looks like we might have some voice of reason in Donald Trump's ear. Donald Trump met with Steve Bannon ahead of decision to delay the Iran attack. So yes, we finally have some information from the United States about whether or not we will enter the conflict, according to this statement from the press secretary. This was late yesterday. President Trump has given Iran 2 weeks, and apparently he'll make his decision within those 2 weeks as to whether to join the war with Israel and bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. 2 weeks, he said. Yes. At the same time, there was an interesting new development, some new reports, very interesting. The Israeli Mossad, their intelligence agencies said that Iran is 2 weeks from a bomb. Isn't that a coincidence? Amazing. So Trump says he'll make a decision to bomb Iran's nukes within 2 weeks. And the same day, the Israeli Mossad says, guess how long it'll take for Iran to build a nuclear bomb? Well, 2 weeks, of course. And the press secretary of the United States reiterated that report. She said that Iran is 2 weeks away. And also yesterday at Trump's National Security Council briefing, the CIA director, John Radcliffe, said Iran is 3 weeks away from a bomb. There's just one problem with this information. I don't believe it's real whatsoever. There is no information, no new information about Iran's nuclear program. It was inspected in March. This is the last time their nuclear program was inspected. There was a report which had not been updated at the time of Israel's strikes on Iran last week. And the report verified by Tulsi Gabbard, who is our director of national intelligence, says that Iran is months, maybe a year away, even from a crude or primitive nuclear device. So what has changed? There is no new information that they can point to. And yet Mossad says all of a sudden, after the bombing campaign began a week ago to the day, that suddenly that timetable has been moved up. And rather than a year or several months, the timetable is, or the timeline rather, is now like 2 weeks. So they're basically, what they're doing is they're going back and reinterpreting old information. And worse, the United States and our security officials are echoing their false intelligence. This is stuff that is coming from the Mossad. This is deja vu all over again. This is the Iraq War. It is the same story. We've seen this movie before. In 2003, they said the exact same thing. They said there was evidence based on soil samples and this plot involving what was a bunch of countries, Niger, and they said that Iraq had acquired weapons of mass destruction and had posed an imminent threat to the region. Turned out to be false. Fabricated by Israel, laundered through allies and people in our own system, the United States system. And it seems like the exact same thing is happening with Iran. And it is being used to push and pressure the president to make a decision as soon as possible. But it does appear that we have a voice of reason in Donald Trump's ear, and that is Steve Bannon. I'm a big fan of Steve Bannon. Trump meets with Steve Bannon ahead of decision to delay Iran attack. Steve Bannon visited the White House on Thursday for a private lunch with President Donald Trump, just hours before Trump announced that he would delay his decision on whether to launch a strike against Iran. The lunch, rescheduled after Bannon was reportedly ill, comes at a critical moment as Trump weighs U.S. involvement in Israel's military campaign. Quote, there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran. I'll make my decision to go within the next 2 weeks. And Iran, the latest that has come from Iran is that they are refusing to negotiate until Donald Trump essentially tells Israel to hold off on these attacks. They said, we will not negotiate until you tell Israel to stop attacking us. Because remember, this whole thing was started by Israel, okay? Israel attacked Iran. They said it was a preemptive strike, but preempting what exactly? They say it's preempting their nuclear program or whatever. But regardless, this was started by Israel. Trump's new 2-week timeline marks a significant departure. The previous timeline, which was I think they meant from the previous timeline, which was anticipated by many pundits of just a few days. The pause also coincides with planned talks between European diplomats and Iranian officials this weekend. Steve Witkoff, U.S. envoy, is not expected to attend. Bannon, a former White House advisor and a key voice in the anti-interventionist wing of Trump's movement, has repeatedly warned against U.S. involvement in another Middle East conflict. And I think this is obviously smart, because these neocons, they like to say, well, Donald Trump has always said that Iran must not get a nuclear warhead, must not get a nuclear weapon. And they want you to conflate this with, we must bomb Iran. We must take out Iran. Those two things are not the same. Not allowing Iran to get a nuclear warhead is not the same as bombing Iran. What was going on? Ostensibly, Donald Trump was talking to Iran. He was trying to create some sort of diplomacy with Iran, trying to come to a deal. And what happened? Those talks were interrupted by Israel. And you might say, well, Donald Trump gave them 60 days or whatever. But it kind of flip-flopped back and forth. Donald Trump said that he was not giving Israel permission to strike. And then Israel just all of a sudden struck Iran. And then Donald Trump acted like, he was in on it the entire time, which I do not believe whatsoever. I believe what was happening is Donald Trump was trying to come to a diplomatic solution. He was trying to come to some sort of agreement, and Israel decided to take their shot on the 61st day. And Donald Trump, I believe, he might have had some inkling. I'm sure there's some intelligence in the United States that knew about this, because the intelligence agencies and the military industrial complex, the Pentagon, is full of neocons. But I don't think necessarily that Donald Trump knew that this was going to happen. I think he played it off after the fact because he didn't want to appear like he was weak. He didn't want to appear as if Israel did something against his will, which I think I find almost as concerning as lying to the American people and saying that he was only in these diplomatic talks with Iran, only as much as Israel can come in and sneak from the back and attack Iran while their guard was down. I think both of those scenarios are equally as concerning to me. He should, if this actually happened with Israel, he should have told Israel to back down. He should have said that Israel does not have the permission to do this because, like I said before, our militaries, our countries, unfortunately, and this is, of course, my opinion. A lot of people have a different opinion of Israel. Unfortunately, our countries are intrinsically tied at this point. We provide them with weapons, we provide them with money, and we provide them with defense. I saw a report just the other day. In order to defend Israel right now with these attacks that are coming from Iran, these counterattacks, rather, it's like $200 million a day. And that's a lot of money. Most of it is coming from the United States. But Bannon has repeatedly warned against U.S. involvement in another Middle East conflict. It's not going to just stop with, they say it's just going to be quick. They say it's just going to be, all we need is a bunker buster bomb to bomb Fordo. We just need the United States B-2 bomber. Is that what it is? B-2 bomber with this bunker buster to go in there and bomb this nuclear site that's in a mountain. I believe I read it's like a half a mile underground. So that's a pretty wild nuclear site that we got going on down there. Israel, they said before, they don't have the ability to reach that. Now they're saying they do. I don't know necessarily that they do. I think there is some sort of, there's going to be some sort of issue that comes down the road that pulls the United States into this conflict. But that's just me just telling you my opinion. It might not happen. But every time there is a popular uprising against war, it appears, or most of the time, it appears like something huge happens. they call them false flags. Something huge happens, and all of a sudden, the United States is dragged into the war. Because what are those people supposed to say? What are those people who are against the war supposed to say when all of a sudden they hear on the news that, oh, Iran attacked U.S. troops. Iran did this. Iran did this terrorist operation somewhere on United States soil. What are they supposed to say? It seems like it happens all the time. It's a trend. I would not be surprised if it does happen this time. But Bannon's meeting with Trump comes as internal debates sparked up in recent weeks among Trump allies over the extent of American engagement and avoiding involvement in what have been called forever wars. Yes, they are forever wars, it appears. And most of them are spurred by Israel. You know, if these were our own wars, if this was directly affecting the United States economy or our safety or something like that, I really wouldn't. I wouldn't mind. You know, these are not wars that are being fought because of the United States and the interest in our security and our safety and our economy. These are not those types of wars. These are wars where Israel is using their influence within the United States through various agencies and apparatuses. And, you know, we see our senators, our representatives coming out, and their rhetoric is pretty chilling. Like Senator Ted Cruz, he comes out, he does an interview with Tucker Carlson. He says he doesn't even know how many people live in Iran. He doesn't know he doesn't know the percentage of this certain ethnicities in Iran. And this is the guy that's supposed to be making decisions about whether or not to topple a regime, whether or not to topple a country that has 90 million people. I mean, I think, you know, we don't even expect the most basic of information to be known by our senators who are calling for this garbage. I find that very concerning. And then he says he bases this is essentially what he said. He said, like, he bases his support of Israel and his defense of Israel on something in the Bible. Now, I believe this has something to do with dispensationalism. But that's what he says he bases his support of Israel. And even in this case, it's like, listen, dude, Israel attacked first. You know, just because Israel does something, that does not mean the United States or the United States representatives should automatically support Israel after the fact. If Israel drops a nuke on London, should we automatically defend that decision? No. And he is basing all of this on some sort of wackadoodle theory in the Bible that the United States and Christians should all support this nation state of Israel and at the same time support its government based off of an Old Testament scripture from like 2,000 years ago. And I'm a Christian. And, you know, I do believe that there is a big difference between the Old and New Testament. And I don't think the Israel today is the same Israel as it was back then. I think it's a very big difference. And I find it concerning that some of our politicians conflate the two. I think that's really weird. It's almost like giving them like a esoteric, godlike position in your mind. And this country or these people can never do any wrong. That, to me, is very concerning. White House spokeswoman Carolyn Levitt urged Americans to trust in Trump as the former president considers his options. Nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He has been unequivocally clear about this for decades, not just as president, not just as a presidential candidate, but also as a private citizen. And we shall see what happens. Right now, like I said, Iran is refusing to meet until the United States tells Israel to back off, which I think is fair. You know, it's like, listen, can they stop and we can talk? let cooler heads prevail. But this is what's going on. The gears of war are turning. And I think it's wild to see. I think it's wild to see the rift between the MAGA base right now. And I think it's it's mostly these paid influencers that do this full time that are for what appears to be some sort of strike on Iran. These talking heads like Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, of course, the mainstream media ones, they are all for it. And then you have some of the other influencers, like people like Laura Loomer, who, of course, in true form, she is just vicious as always. And I would say she is highly dishonest in her reporting and what she is putting out there about people like Tucker Carlson specifically. That's one that she has gone after harder than anyone, because Tucker Carlson is, I believe, one of the most influential right now when it comes to foreign policy, based off of himself, his own notoriety, and also just based off of some of the guests he's had on his show who know what they're talking about on a lot of these issues. And then certainly there was the interview with Senator Ted Cruz, which in my opinion was an absolute disaster for Ted Cruz, and not just Ted Cruz, but it really brought into question some of these foreign lobbies, specifically AIPAC, and why they are not having to register as a foreign lobby. He tried to beat around the bush and explain how a foreign lobby is not actually a foreign lobby. He really attempted to do that. But I think that just made him more suspect. And then, of course, he had the whole thing where he was trying to justify the war in Iran on the Bible. He's trying to conflate it somehow with Christianity. And I think these are just very dirty tactics. And that being kind of out in the open, Laura Loomer got her marching orders, and she was accusing Tucker Carlson of being just about anything under the sun, except for a rational human being. Accused him of taking money from Qatar, accused him of backstabbing Trump, just pretty awful things. And when he put out evidence that he didn't take money from Qatar, Laura Loomer said, basically, no one believes you didn't take money from Qatar. You took money from Qatar. You took it from your consulting firm, when she had no evidence. And initially what she did is she put out this FARA document about Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson did travel to Qatar. He interviewed the Qatari prime minister, and in order to do so, they had to file a FARA document saying, he was going over to this foreign country to do this foreign business. He filed the FARA document, or his consulting company filed the FARA document, which is a Foreign Agent Registration Act. The document was filed, and Laura Loomer posted a screenshot of this document saying that this is proof that Tucker Carlson was paid $200,000 to interview the Prime Minister of Qatar. And if you were just scrolling through Twitter, you read that, you'd be like, oh, well, in this screenshot, it's going to show that Tucker Carlson was paid $200,000. And most people, they're just scrolling through. They're not paying attention. They might read the headline. Well, I clicked on the actual screenshot and I inspected it. Nowhere in the document did it show that Tucker Carlson was paid anything. And not only that, but the consulting firm, after this went viral, the consulting firm, I believe it was Lumen 8 something, released a statement saying that they had arranged the interview between Tucker Carlson and the Prime Minister of Qatar, and they confirmed that Tucker Carlson wasn't paid anything. He might have been, they might have probably provided some sort of room and board for Tucker Carlson, but as it stands right now, there is no evidence that Tucker Carlson was paid anything, certainly not $200,000, and Laura Loomer is yelling into the wind trying to create a story out of nothing, which I find very dishonest. So these neocons, they use very dirty tricks in order to sway public opinion. And yes, I would consider Laura Loomer at this point to be a neocon, or someone that is in favor of going to war for the country of Israel, which I think is a very specific type of neocon. I think it's most of them actually at this point. But we shall see. We got 2 weeks to stop the spread. Yes. Hopefully Israel stops bombing Iran for the 2 weeks and we can figure this out between the United States and Iran. Israel most likely, I mean, certainly is going to be trying to sabotage these peace talks, but we shall see. A lot of big stuff is going to be happening in the next month. Can't wait to see it. But what are your thoughts on all this stuff? Let me know down below in the comments what you think. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. But until then, I'll see you on the next one.